what country William is from. Welcome, everybody. This will be our second presentation in the second online conference by AIU. The theme of this conference is education in the 21st century. What resources can we use and what new developments can we use to further education in the world? Now, this presentation will be given by William Nieto. And so what program are you studying at AIU?
Doctorate for project management, in project management.
And I want to say that this is the second presentation for the conference for AIU. And during this presentation, you can ask questions in chat, and then William will answer the questions. So you can ask questions at any time during the presentation. William is coming to us from Bogota, Colombia, in South America. So I think his first language is Spanish, and his second language is English. Is that true, William?
Yeah, it's true.
Okay. So I think we have one participant today from Brazil, but I think most of the participants are from Africa and the Middle East and Switzerland and other parts of Europe and the United States. So the presentation today will be about breaking walls and building bridges for teaching learning process. But this is going to be focused on deaf children who don't hear, bringing more resources to give them better education. So William, I'm going to put the presentation in your hands now. If you want to give a brief introduction about yourself, you can do that too.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. As you say, my name is William Nieto, and I'm here with Dr. Carolina Sarmiento, who is my partner for researching and is my colleague also. We teach at XC University in Bogota, Colombia. That is one of the universities that has more a bigger population for engineering, and our population has special features, as you will see later. Dr. Carolina Sarmiento and I are part of the team of researching professors for 2 master programs at this university, and our work is divided. Her work is oriented to technological development for data modeling, analysis and prediction for different sources, and decision making for some sectors, finance, from finance to curriculum representation for higher education using ontologies. And her work is used by the National University in Colombia for some engineering programs. And on the other hand, my experience is more oriented to project management. My MBA, my other master studies, and my doctorate are focused on that field, but always with education, and especially with higher education. This is the brief introduction of ourselves. And now let me give the speech for a moment to Carolina, and she will introduce the target population that is our goal in this project.
Okay, hi everyone. Okay, let's start by describing the target population. We work in Bogota, as William said before. Our university has more than 20,000 students from different fields. Engineering is one of the most important of this of programs of this university. We have programs of electronical, mechanical, industrial, environmental, and IT engineering programs. And this is the scenario where we work our problem that we will explain later. 20,000 students are spectators of this project. We have worked with the students from the last 2 years from high school, 10th and 11th. And then two, we work with the students of from the engineering programs who attend subjects related with uh, project formulation, evaluation, and management for engineering. And we have worked, moreover, and perhaps one of the most important things is that we have every day more and more students that are deaf and or hearing loss in the middle of groups or hearing students. We say that these groups are regular students because they are hearing students, and this one of the things that we detect with this research. And another important factor to have in mind is that about 60% of our students are in a really low economical condition, and some of them have to ride their bikes for more than 20 kilometers in order to go to a study. And we have a really low ratio for car usage in our institution due to the low income of the most of our students and their families. Thank you.
Okay, then um, this is the, or it was the explanation for the target population, and this is the scenario that we deal with daily in our programs. We have at the end of the engineering program some subjects that are related with project management, and this class is a little bit unusual when we have some students that are deaf or that have hearing loss in some degree, and others that are 100% uh, listeners hearing perfectly. Then we have a typical distribution where we have 4 of 30 students in a course and they are deaf. Then is the resources that we have to deal with, and the resources that we have to um, manage in those kind of groups are a little bit different from the other typical groups, because we have one professor, one interpreter, 4 or 5 students, and 24 or 25 students in another part of the classroom. Then they are a little bit as isolated, and they are a little bit segregated, maybe. And this is one of the problems that we have. And because it's not a common situation, the professor usually mm, has different behavior with those kind of students. Then this is what we call the excess of sympathy with deaf students. And it's clear when students, of course, this example is a simple math example, but when they are evaluated or assessed about the skills that they have for the concepts and competencies that they have to have for project management, for evaluating projects, formulating projects, monitor and control the projects. Maybe they have another better outcomes when they write or when they answer the questions, but for some reason they are evaluated great for some professors, and this is what we call the excess of sympathy with those kind of students. Of course, we are human. We are human beings, and as human beings, we have feelings. But this is a fine age that we have sometimes problems with. Uh, we try to teach everything that we have from the curriculum. We have to build competencies. We know that we have two different groups in this classroom. We try to deal with interpreters. We try to deal with um, students with different levels, with different styles of learning. That is another issue or variance that we have, variable that we have. But the problem is that we can't standardize the teaching process for both groups in the same classroom. And we have this issue. Deaf students are minority and they are not fully integrated in this class. Then the message sometimes is one for hearing students, another for hearing loss, and another for deaf students. This is where the problem started to be more superficial and more apparent with the assessment and the following process that we have when we try to teach this kind of mixed group. Then in this problem, we have some features. For example, engineering students have lower grading with the project management subjects or the subjects that are related with this. And when the process from the professor is fair, we have this grading. Sometimes we have some grading process that is different and it's a little bit more difficult to achieve and visualize the numbers, the results, the statistics. We have professors that have who have difficulties dealing with innovation in class. We have for project management, we have different professors that have maybe 20, 30, 40 years on that field with the real sector, the productive sector, and we brought those professors with their knowledge to class, and maybe they have the specific and technical knowledge, but try to deal with these kind of groups without with PowerPoint, Excel, and Microsoft Word, and that's all. Maybe some social networks is not enough for dealing with those difficulties that we have in class with the population. The professors are a little bit more outdated, maybe, with those means and those technical issues. And another big problem that we have is that we have some years ago some public policies that started with secondary education, that those policies have been designed for the majority, for hearing students, not for students with any kind of disability. Nowadays, like 2 years ago, we started with a process with new regulations, and the Ministry of Education of our country started to be connected with the IT ministry in Colombia, in order to not only give bigger coverage for the students, but also for being more inclusive with those means and those tools that we have. Okay, then another big problem, and I can tell you because, of course, English is my second language, or our second language. is that for deaf students, sign language is their first language. Spanish in Colombia, for them, is their second language. They have some difficulties for dealing with contractions, with prepositions, with all kind of articles, connectors. Yeah, we try to um, explain in a simple way that we have people that are able to communicate when they write in Spanish in a similar way that some First Nations with limited grammar and semantic and structure that is a little bit simpler than our structure. Then they are focused on verb, noun, and maybe some uh, adverb or some frequency word for indicating some kind of time relationship. But but yeah, they say something like I speak clear. I go classroom. I yeah. They 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 have this lack of connectors when they try to write. This is why even when we read their essays, for example, or their writing, it's a little bit complicated for us, and they have all the time that they need to write, but their communication is different. Then you can imagine that almost, I mean, 90-95% of the textbooks and guides that we have to use for project management, that is the subject that we started with, is originally in English. I am part of the PMI, that is the Project Management Institute, and we change our framework almost every 4 years. And before, when we have a final edition in Spanish, the translation in Spanish, maybe 6 months later, it was 3 years after the issue for the official English version. Then 6 months after that, we have the new English and renovated version. Then this space makes more difficult for them. They have to read and study from texts that are in English, frameworks, the body of knowledge that are in English, and for them, is one step more, is one barrier more. Um, okay, then this is about the general things for our problem, and maybe we can start here explaining the process that we establish in order to try to deal with this problem that we explained before. The subject was focused on project management and the project management subjects or the other subjects that are related with project management, because at the beginning, every professor tried to say, okay, how about starting with my subject, with structures, with the circuits, with the physics, with the maths, with okay, different subjects. But because we started with the process uh, at the project management classroom, then we try to keep going, trying to solve the problems that we found there. Another thing is that because we are conscious of our lack of policies from the government, then we try to start one step before, and we start making some surveys and gather some numbers and statistics from the previous grades. The for us, secondary and high school finish in grade 10 and 11, and we start with grades with different groups from grade 11 and other from the different semesters or the years at the engineering programs. As Karina told you before, we work with electronic, mechanical, industrial, environmental, and IT engineering programs. and all of them have in fifth semester and ninth and tenth semester, that is the are the, the latest, uh, some kind of subject that are related with project management. Then we try to work with open source tools. That is something that um, maybe connect more people, because when you have a commercial interest for software or hardware, the teams are more limited. When open source tools, we have more people working um, for the same goal, I will say, and also because of the cost of working with different licenses that are commercial, but it's higher. Then we try to keep inside the open source tools as far as we can. Okay, and we stayed a multidisciplinary team. We are two engineers with different specialization, different fields of um, background and experience, but we are engineers, and uh, we have to work with other people, with people from um, with more teaching experience, with people with more um, IT knowledge, specifically about hardware, specifically about software. Uh, and at the end, we realized that we need some people from the linguistic for the linguistic part, uh, because trying to deal with sign language, English, Spanish, augmented reality, 3D modeling is a process that have a lot of arms, a lot of branches to deal with. We started reviewing some augmented reality tools for 3D modeling, and also for reviewing or for viewers with different platforms, with iOS, with Android, because we found that even that our population has a lower income, one of their priorities is having a nice cell phone, smartphone, because maybe we are more focused on, I don't know, an unlimited plan for minutes on air for voice. But because of their condition, they are more focused on data plans, and for data plans they need higher specification for their devices. Then it's not um, uh, it's common to find that we have uh, between our students uh, highest specifications for smartphones, tablets, even if their clothing is not the best. Or maybe, as Carolina said before, they have to ride a bike for 20, 22 kilometers in order to go save the money for the bus and go to class and go back to their home. And another thing that we have to set is that we need an original and adaptive workflow. It means that we started with a waterfall framework using Gantt diagrams, Gantt charts, something that was very hypercritical. It means that you can't start one task before you finish the previous one. And all these kind of limitations were delaying our work. This is why we try to deal with some agile frameworks, agile methodologies for developing and also for managing our project. Then we can have more parallel tasks, more tasks at the same time, and being more flexible for delivering value to our students. Okay, in this process, of course, we have the the problem that our students were deaf, and sometimes our the staff for universities of um, our government seems to be deaf also, because we have different problems with um, how they understood our goals. And we connect this with the learning styles theory, not only for teaching our sponsors how to listen to us better, but also for adapting the process, as I told you before, for teaching and learning, for this two-way process. Then we know that everyone has different level of those learning styles. We learn because we hear something. We learn because we move and we create and we are able to make something, and we create also because we saw something. Then this is why we have this mixture of visual learner, auditory learning, and kinesthetic learning. And every single student, every single learner has different level of those three aspects. Of course, for our students, auditory learning is something that we can count in. And visual and kinesthetic is something that is or that has a higher level with them. We have a metaphor, a comparison with students or people in general that are blind, because they can't see. They develop other skills. For example, if you can give a bill, a $1 bill, or a $10 bill, or a $25 bill to one blind person, he or she is able to touch the bill, and by its texture, they can tell you the denomination of that bill. And if we are normal people, people without disabilities, get one of those bills, we are unable to do it. We are not able to do it. Then this is why we know that we have different skills, different abilities, and different levels of those learning styles. This is why we try to work with their strengths and not with their weaknesses. We realize that they are more on the kinesthetic side, because they have to make a sign with one hand, with another hand, with their body, their entire body. They have to make a special gesture, their eyes move in a different way, uh, all together and all at the same time. Maybe for most of us, this kind of coordination is complicated. Uh, then we start working like in a Lego process, and we start with this cross that you can see here. That is the cross that we have when you have a paper cube that you try to craft and build as a volume and not to the surface. And we have to create those cubes with different sides, and in each side we try to deal with a message, a concept, image, sign from the sign language, maybe some icon, our logo from the university, different things. And we have to play, we have to make them play with this physical instrument, yeah. But of course, if for every concept we need a physical cube, we have to have a huge space in order to deal with all the material that we need to teach one class. Then we start thinking about their strengths with movement and the kinesthetic thing, and we end with that idea of making those cubes with 3D modeling and virtual reality. Those cubes were so simple at the beginning, with 2 or 3 concepts and one picture as a texture. But what we were able to communicate concepts, but we need a little bit more in order to teach really with this tool. Then we started with some tools, and we built different concepts. We tried to work with those trackers that you can see in the upper left corner. Those are like business cards made by paper. At the beginning, that process was handwritten with ink and pen and just a piece of paper. And later we try to make them by computer. The trick with those tracers is that has to be no symmetrical. Then they work as QR codes, and we have to we can use it by the system coordinated, and we can rotate virtual volumes using that business card, that paper, in the real world. We just have like a bunch of cards, maybe like a poker cards, 52 cards in a little space, but the knowledge that we can have when we mix those papers with the concepts from the 3D modeling and the augmented reality are huge, and the limit is the imagination that you put on that process. Then this is why we have in this slide we have to make it digital in an easy, blocky or Lego way to understand. We try to make something like a game with blocks, like Lego blocks, and by try and error, by this process, trial and error process, they understand which concept is connected with which concept. We have here the card, or the tracing card, and the 3D modeling to the right. Okay, then we start making some tests with this. We have different tablets from different brands. I have to say that the Korean brands performs better than the other ones, with no commercial issue. And we have those viewers. We were here using Augment, that is a trial license for some of our testing, and we have one concept. SA, I think, if I remember well, is scheduling activities. the concept of scheduling activities for any project, and we modeled the block at the beginning with this SA, just the SA in 3D on the top of the block, and we try to stamp different ideas and concepts related with the scheduled activities in that block. Then, when the student, the deaf or hearing loss student, play with just a piece of paper using as a visor, as a viewer, their smartphone or their tablet, they can get through all the knowledge that that virtual object had for them. Yeah, and the relationship between different objects make the final process through the knowledge that we need. This is one of the
Hello,
yeah
William.
yeah
You have about 15 minutes left,
yeah. So
and we have one question: is the research funded that you do? Do you receive money for your research?
um, from our university, we have some hours that is kind of the funding for our time. Yeah, the for some hours of researching that we have, but most of the resources so far were our own resources. For example, the tablets, smartphones, different viewers and devices were our resources. We are now like in a bidding process from our government. We have a special institute for researching that is a national institute that is called Ciencias, and they have different funds for these for those kind of projects. But it's a long process. For example, for this kind of project, they can give you uh, maybe this like $2,000 for starting, and we can show results and get more money according to the results or depending on the result that we show. But we are now in this bidding process that is long and bureaucratic process with hundreds of thousands of researching support, resources support, and this is how now we have deal with the funding that for it. I mean, the piece that we have for our researching is limited because, of course, the resourcing or the funding is not the one that we need right now.
Now, do you have a video? Do you want to show a video?
Uh, I think because it's heavy, I don't know if the video is able to get through, but I will finish my explanation in 2 minutes, and then maybe we can have the time to test it.
Okay.
Okay. Then this is why we, for example, with sequence activities, we have this concept, this block like a Lego, as I said before, for the time management topic inside the project management subject. This is how we deal with different, or we end with different cubes. And then with Python, we develop small scripts for trial and error. And when they clash, when they touch each other, they have different responses like green or red. Red is when the connection between those concepts is wrong, and green is when the connection is right. Um, it's like a game for them, and it's less complicated for them than reading the 600 Arial 6 font pages for project management and body of knowledge. Then it's a little bit more fun for them, and we had better results. We try to deal with this. This is why we show the augmented reality devices like tablets and cell phones and their hands, that we can have all the technology, but they made their own process with the kinesthetic process. Then we started with the researching and writing down process. It was long. We connected with different universities also in Cape Town in Africa, and we have some connection with some universities in Washington and California that are some universities with a lot of experience with teaching to deaf students. Now, the big problem is that sign language is something that is so different around the world. It's not like if you speak Spanish from Colombia, you can understand the Spanish from Venezuela, Peru, Ecuador, Argentina, Chile, Mexico. But if you speak sign language, the Colombian sign language is so different from the sign language from Spain, from Argentina, from Venezuela, and this is another layer, additional layer that we had. Okay, then we studied a little bit more about that. We made some pre-designs on paper. Then we designed in 3D with software. Then we modeled that 3D. We try, and of course, if it failures, we research and redesign things. And if it was okay, we went to the class with some value, some minimum value product that we can deliver to improve the method of teaching. And of course, at the end, everything it's better. The results are a little bit better. We break down our project quickly in project management, pedagogic engineering, linguistic, pedagogic engineering, technological development, because we need hardware and software, linguistics, and the modeling and development. This is how we break down our work in order to finish the process. In this post experience, as I told you before, we have those experimentation with paper and models. We also start working with deaf students, not only as spectators and final users, but also with them for creating the capacitation, the training videos in order to publish the small results that we had. Then we try to speak in English, have Spanish subtitles, and Colombian Sign Language rectangles with their video. Then we try to be more inclusive even when we communicate our results. The experience that we had here was really, really interesting because, for example, this is a deaf student that worked with us, and if you see the two signs that we have to the right, wake up and realize of something, realizing for something, is so similar. I mean, if you see his hands are in the same way, making the same gesture, but the slight differences that they have or that he has in his eyes change totally the meaning of that sign. For one is waking up, and another is realizing that I'm wrong, for example. Then, it was really, really interesting and challenging for us. We use some tools, as I told you before. Most of them were we try to work with the open source tools, all the G Drive and Gmail platform, viewers that are open source or at least free for educational purposes. LibreOffice as mean of word processing and tables and some basic statistics, and Blender for modeling. Buforia for some cute some codes, and the smartphones that maybe are our limitation and constraints now, because the hardware with higher specification is really expensive. This is how now this is a deaf student is working with some cards and the phone. This is one sub project that is an example of how they can be better understood, I will say, because now every single space, every single classroom, laboratory has those kind of labels um, beside the main door for that space. And for example, they explain one concept related with that space. They explain what is that space and what is that space for, if it's a laboratory, and they explain more things. When they have their smartphone, they just go close to the space and reading one code, the same code that you use for paying at the cashier or ATM, or make some finance or some payment transaction. They can have a full video explaining with Colombian Sign Language and some graphics and visual aids what happens inside that space. Okay, finally, as a lesson learned, we realized that about the imperative importance of multidisciplinary teams. I mean, at the beginning, we try to be superheroes and we try to do everything as two lonely engineers, but now we are connected with different fields and different universities also. We understand that the target of this researching process has to have an active participation from deaf students. Before they were like spectators and final users, but now they are more involved with our process. It makes easier and shorter the testing process. And I think the final value is better. There is a new way to approach a teaching learning process with people with code disabilities, because I think that the abilities that they have are different, but they are not disabled. And it's possible to do many things for improving students with hearing disabilities using open source tools and the effort that the multidisciplinary teams have. And what we hope for the future of this researching, we hope include other subjects, not only project management, but we try to teach other subjects and include other grades from primary and early secondary grades also, with subjects that maybe for us are simpler, but for them as deaf students are equally complicated. We try to get the license agreements, because it's true that commercial software and commercial hardware is really expensive for us, but we need to try on those with those software or those tools. We cannot be limited by the budget that we have. That most of the time is our budget, and we try to train deaf students as modeler for new projects. We are looking for universities with American Sign Language. It can be universities at in the US, in England, in Australia, in order to make this connection between Colombian Sign Language and American Sign Language, and another language that is a international sign language that is totally different, that is more for politics and diplomacy and these kind of things. And we try to work with local universities that are specialized in hardware for image analysis. And this is something that some people from the electronic field are trying to connect some globes with sensors and some avatars, and they are working with the secretary, the clerk from the dean office, for example, with one monitor and one globe. And it makes a little bit less complex the communication between deaf students and someone who is an assistant for some clerical administrative stuff, but they need to be able to communicate with the students for the daily things, not only for teaching them specific subjects. And it makes better the communication between hardware, software, the daily stuff, and the subjects in class. Um, this is what we have. We have here some references. We have thousands, but this is some of the references that we have for our researching. And for now, that's all. Thank you. And if you have some questions.
Thank you so much, William. We do have some questions. One question is, how did you start this wonderful project? What motivated you?
Okay, I was the coordinator for the project management topic inside the engineering, and then I changed to the master for project management. But when I was coordinating different professors, I realized that the assessment process and the teaching process was more than unusual for those students, special students. As I told you before, we have in that university we have more than 20,000 students, and even though the deaf students are not a huge number, and less than 100 in our university. When we have that mixture between hearing students and deaf students, trying to deal with any subject, but for my case, I was interested in my subject, that was project management. I saw that the assessment was different. As I told you before, we used the concept of excess of sympathy in their assessment. And I think that we have to deal with their difficulties, but it's not like giving gifts as grades, or because maybe 2 or 3 years after they finish their major, the real and the productive sector will be sure that the lack of knowledge that they had before have some consequences, and this is why I start to make some numbers and statistics about the number of groups, the efficiency of the interpreters in class, how they are in class, but they are like two different groups, and the teacher is trying to communicate in a different way, not with the deaf students, but with the interpreter and the listeners. Then it's like it was a little bit painful to see that reality. But when we went back, of course, it's a consequence of many things: lack of policies, lack of culture, lack of knowledge about a more universal teaching process. Because we are humans, but by nature, I think we are a little bit exclusive in our process, even when we try to do something that has to be so inclusive as education.
Well, thank you so much. You brought up some great ideas that everybody can apply. I know you're working with deaf children, but you bring up technology that everybody can use. You bring up different concepts that people can apply to all kinds of problems in the classroom for education, so that people can communicate and they can get beyond these limitations of communication. So we want to thank you so much for your research, presenting your research with the university and with other students. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, you can write your email down below in the chat, and they can ask you about what kind of technology you use, some of your techniques, so that they can, because I see some of the people in chat would like to apply these concepts in their own countries.
Yeah.
So you can write your email down there, and if anybody wants more information, they can contact William Nieto to get more information. Now, at this point in time, we have to move on to the next presentation. And I'm seeing here that everybody is really, really pleased with your presentation. It's good.
Thank you.
And it's a great presentation. So you can go and read the chat. And I'm going to end your presentation right now, but you can continue to talk with people in chat and answer questions.
Okay, I already typed the two email contacts. One that is for Skype, and the other one that is the email for from the university. Then I will be glad to hear about new ideas. We are looking for some institutions, universities, institutions for dev or for teaching and learning that is not only related with the universities. It's not so close the panorama that we have here. We have different and many opportunities to work together if someone want to.
And that's one of the functions that we have at AIU, Atlantic International University, is networking students so they can work together, collaborate on research, share resources, and do projects together. And so everybody have his email. If you want to get involved in this project and if you have ideas or you need information, get in touch with William Nieto and ask about how you can get involved. Okay, William, thank you so much. We have to end this, and I have to get the next one started, the next presentation started.
Thank you.
You continue to talk with people in chat because their people are asking questions still.
Okay.
Once again, thank you so much, Nieto. Bye.
Okay, bye.